Rain poured down hard that night, cold, sharp, and endless. Jasmine stood in front of her childhood home, soaked to the skin. Her hands gently rested on her swollen belly. She was just 21, and already the world felt like it had turned against her. The front door swung open. Her mother stood there, face tight with anger and shame. "How could you?" her mother shouted. "After everything we've taught you, sleeping with that man, your boss?" Jasmine's voice cracked. "It's not true. Mom, please, just listen." But before she could finish, the door slammed in her face. Behind that closed door, she could still hear her parents yelling. Her father's voice boomed louder than thunder. "She's a disgrace to this house. She brought shame on this family." Jasmine's chest tightened. Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She looked around. A few neighbors had peeked out of their windows. One elderly woman across the street stood on her porch, arms folded, shaking her head slowly. Nobody said a word. Nobody helped. Jasmine reached for the door again, knocked softly, then harder. "Please," she cried. "I didn't do what they said. It's not true. I need you. I need home." Nothing. Only silence. Her fingers slipped from the doorknob. She stood there, breathing heavy, shoes soaked through. She had no umbrella, no coat, just the light dress she wore from earlier that day, now clinging to her skin. Her bare feet hurt from the cold pavement. With one hand on her belly and the other wiping her eyes, she turned and slowly walked away. Her steps were heavy, not just from the rain, but from the weight of everything falling apart. She didn't know where to go. She didn't know who would help. The only thing she knew was that her world had just broken, and no one believed her. Before everything went wrong, Jasmine had a simple but full life. She was a nursing student at the local community college, one of the top in her class. Her days were busy with classes, work, and taking care of her younger brother, Elijah, who had sickle cell disease. He was only 12 and often weak. Jasmine helped him with his medicine, cooked for him, and stayed up on nights when he couldn't sleep. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Coleman, were known in the community as kind but very strict people. They were devout Christians and believed strongly in rules, respect, and doing what was right in the eyes of God. Their house was quiet, organized, and full of Bible verses on the walls. Jasmine loved them deeply, but she often felt like they didn't really see her, only who they wanted her to be. To help pay for school, Jasmine worked part-time at a private clinic run by Dr. Ryan Walters. He was in his late 40s, soft-spoken, and always polite. He had no family of his own and treated Jasmine with respect. He often told her she had the potential to become a great nurse. Over time, he trusted her more and gave her small responsibilities in the clinic, like helping with patient files and organizing supplies. Jasmine's best friend, Maya, had been in her life since they were in middle school, but lately, something had changed. Maya was still friendly, but her words had a bite to them, small jabs about Jasmine's grade or how Dr. Walters liked her too much. Jasmine didn't pay it much attention. She thought Maya was just going through something. She had no idea that Maya had a secret crush on Dr. Walters, or that she had begun to envy Jasmine's success and calm life. Then there was Aaron, Jasmine's boyfriend for almost a year. He was quiet, unsure of himself, and sometimes distant. Still, he made her laugh when she was stressed and held her hand during hard times. But one day, he started acting cold. He didn't call. He didn't text. When Jasmine asked him what was wrong, he told her he thought she was seeing someone else. He had heard things, that she spent too much time with her boss. No matter how she tried to explain, he wouldn't listen. A week later, he broke up with her. Jasmine was heartbroken, but she didn't have time to fall apart. She was pregnant and had just found out. It wasn't planned. She had been trying to find the right time to tell her parents, but with Elijah's health getting worse and her own fears about disappointing them, she kept it to herself. She told no one, not even Maya. At school and at work, she kept her head down. She still helped Elijah with his medicine, still went to work and smiled through her shifts. She thought maybe, just maybe, she could gather enough courage to tell her parents soon. She hoped they would be shocked but supportive. She hoped they would see she was still the same girl, just going through a hard time. But that hope would soon break, because a rumor was coming, and Jasmine never saw it coming. One afternoon, Maya came to the Coleman house while Jasmine was out running errands. She sat with Mrs. Coleman in the kitchen and lowered her voice like she was about to share something serious. "I didn't want to say anything," Maya said, pretending to be sad. But I saw Jasmine at Dr. Walter's house late at night, more than once. I think she's pregnant for him. Mrs. Coleman froze. She had already noticed Jasmine's stomach looking rounder. She had asked once, but Jasmine quickly changed the subject. Now, Maya's words hit like a knife. Are you sure? She asked. Maya nodded. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought you should know. It's not right. That evening, when Jasmine came home from the clinic, she found her mother standing in the living room with her arms folded. Where were you? Mrs. Coleman asked sharply. At work, Jasmine replied, confused. Doctor, Walters needed help with filing. Mrs. Coleman stepped closer. Why are people saying you've been going to his house? Late at night? What are you hiding from us? Jasmine's heart started pounding. Her hands trembled. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. She wasn't ready for this. I was going to tell you. Tell me what, Jasmine? Her mother shouted. That you're carrying your boss's child. No! Jasmine cried. It's not like that. It's not Dr. Walters. I was going to tell you about Aaron. But it was too late. That same night, Maya took it a step further. She created fake text messages between Jasmine and Dr. Walters using an editing app. The messages made it look like Jasmine was flirting and arranging to meet him in secret. Then, she sent screenshots to Mr. Coleman through an anonymous email. When he opened it, his face turned red with anger. So this is the truth. My daughter out there sleeping with her boss? Bringing shame to this house? Jasmine walked into the room, just as he threw the phone on the table. Dad, please, she whispered. That's not real. Maya, she's lying. Please just listen to me. But neither parent listened. You are a disgrace, Mrs. Coleman shouted. After everything we've done for you, you think you can live in my house and behave like this? Mr. Coleman added. Jasmine begged. She cried. She tried to show them the real texts with Aaron. She tried to explain how Maya had been acting strange lately, how none of it made sense. But they didn't want to hear. You're no longer welcome here, Mr. Coleman said, his voice cold. Go live with your boss if that's what you want, Mrs. Coleman added, turning her back. Jasmine stood there, shaking, her eyes full of tears. She felt the room spin. She looked around at the only home she had ever known, now treating her like a stranger. Outside, the sky began to darken. She walked to her room in silence, packed what little she could into a bag. A few clothes, her journal, her brother's old sweater. She touched Elijah's door, but didn't knock. She didn't want him to see her like this. At the front door, her mother stood with her arms crossed. Jasmine opened her mouth one last time. Please, Mom, it's not true. But the door was already swinging shut behind her. And just like that, she was out, alone, cold, pregnant, and heartbroken. Jasmine walked into the women's shelter with nothing but her small bag and a heavy heart. The room they gave her was small, cold, and shared with 2 other women. She slept on a thin mattress near the window. There was no privacy, and the sound of crying babies filled the night. She kept her head down, spoke little, and tried not to cry where anyone could see. Each morning, she forced herself to get up early. She tried to go to her classes, but the bus rides were long and tiring. Her body was changing fast, and morning sickness made everything harder. Soon, she started missing lectures and practicals. One day, she got an email from the school. Her scholarship had been taken away. Too many absences. No explanation accepted. She took up small jobs, cleaning, folding laundry, even handing out flyers on the street. The money wasn't much, but it helped her eat and buy soap and prenatal vitamins. Some days, she only had 1 meal. Still, she pushed on. The clinic where she used to work was in trouble too. After the rumors spread, people started talking. A few patients stopped coming. Dr. Walters was called in for questioning. He told everyone the truth. There was never anything between him and Jasmine, but the damage had been done. His name was dragged through the mud. The other nurses began to look at Jasmine differently, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. One afternoon, Aaron came back into her life. He met her outside the shelter. He looked nervous, eyes darting around. I heard what happened, he said. I'm not ready to be a father. This is all too much. Jasmine didn't beg. She just nodded and watched him walk away. She missed her little brother Elijah the most. So one day, she went to his school and waited by the gate. When he saw her, he ran into her arms, crying. I miss you, Jazz, he whispered. Why won't Mommy let you come home? Jasmine kissed his forehead. "It's not your fault. Just keep being strong, okay?" Elijah later told their mum he saw Jasmine, begged her to let his sister come back, but Mrs. Coleman refused. Then, one day, Maya showed up at the shelter. She brought Jasmine a small bag of fruit and sat beside her like a friend. "I just wanted to see how you're doing," she said sweetly. "You know, people have kind of moved on now. They don't talk about you anymore." Jasmine said nothing. She looked at Maya and tried to figure out why someone who hurt her so deeply would pretend to care. Maya smiled the whole time, but Jasmine saw the fake behind her teeth. Later that night, Jasmine sat on her bed and pulled out her journal. It was the only place she could say how she really felt. She wrote down her pain, her fears, and her hopes for the baby. Some nights, she cried as she wrote. Other nights, she just stared at the page. Weeks passed, and things got worse. She began feeling sharp pains in her stomach. The doctor at the clinic gave her a serious look. "You need rest, Jasmine. Stress is hurting you and the baby. If you keep pushing yourself like this, you could lose the baby." Jasmine nodded, but she didn't know how to rest. She had nowhere to go, no one to lean on. Still, she placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Just hold on, little one. I'm trying." And even in the darkness, she kept writing, because even when the world had turned its back on her, the pen still listened. One quiet afternoon, Elijah was looking for his missing earbuds in the house. He searched under the couch, behind the TV stand, and even under Maya's old jacket that she had forgotten during one of her visits. That's when he saw something, a small, cracked phone, half buried in a pile of books near the shoe rack. Curious, he picked it up. The screen was still working. It was Maya's old phone. He knew he shouldn't go through it, but something in his heart told him to check. Maybe it was the way Jasmine still cried when she thought no one was listening, or maybe it was the strange feeling he always got when Maya smiled too much. He charged the phone and went through the messages. Most of it was random gossip, old chats and selfies. But then he found the deleted folder. Hidden in there were screenshots and texts, ones Maya had faked. There were even drafts where she edited the message timestamps to make it look real. One clearly read, "Make it look like Jasmine was with Dr. Walters." Another had a fake romantic message from him. Elijah's hands shook. His eyes filled with tears. He couldn't believe it. Maya had lied. She had destroyed Jasmine's life, for nothing but jealousy. The next day at school, Elijah found Maya near the lockers. He waited until no one was around. "You lied," he said quietly. "What?" She laughed. "I found your old phone," he said. "I saw the fake messages." Maya's face froze. "You ruined her life," Elijah said, louder this time. "And you know it." She tried to deny it at first, but her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." Elijah pulled out his phone. "Say it again." "What?" "Say you faked it." "I'm recording." Maya panicked. "Please, Elijah, don't do this. I'll get in trouble." But the fear in her voice gave her away, and in the middle of her rambling, she admitted it. She made up the messages, lied to Jasmine's mum, and sent the screenshots to her dad. Elijah saved the recording. After school, he slipped out and took a bus to the shelter. When Jasmine saw him, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. "I found proof," he whispered. "Maya lied. I have everything on record." Jasmine's eyes widened. She listened to the recording, hands shaking, heart racing. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. The next morning, Jasmine met with Dr. Walters and his lawyer. She played the recording. The lawyer's eyes lit up. "This is enough to file a defamation case." Within days, the clinic released a statement. Dr. Walters had been cleared, his name restored. Maya's school called her parents in. After reviewing the evidence, they expelled her for misconduct. Word spread quickly. The church council, who once praised the Colemans for their strict parenting, now summoned them for a meeting. Community elders sat in a circle, listening to the recording Elijah had made. Mrs. Coleman covered her mouth in shock. Tears ran down her face as she realized the truth. Mr. Coleman sat frozen. He didn't speak. He couldn't. When Jasmine entered the room, everyone turned. She stood tall, belly round, face calm. Mrs. Coleman stood and tried to rush toward her. "Jasmine, But Jasmine held up a hand. "I didn't come here for an apology," she said. Her voice was steady. "I came to bring the truth." There was silence. Jasmine looked at her parents one last time. "You believed a lie. You turned your backs on me, but I survived." With that, she turned and walked out. No anger, No revenge, just truth. The day Jasmine gave birth was quiet and gentle. The nurses smiled warmly as they guided her through each moment. After all the pain, all the tears, and all the lonely nights, she held her baby girl in her arms. She named her Hope. Dr. Walters stood nearby, not as her boss, but as a friend, someone who had believed her when no one else did. He gently placed a small stuffed bear beside the baby and said, "She's beautiful, Jasmine, just like you." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they came with a smile. "Thank you for being here," she whispered. From that day on, Jasmine's life began to slowly change. A few weeks after giving birth, she received a letter from a women's advocacy group. They had heard about her story, the young nursing student who was wrongly accused, kicked out of her home, yet still found a way to keep going. They offered her a scholarship to return to school and finish her nursing degree. She cried when she read the letter. She packed up her things at the shelter and moved into a small shared apartment for young mothers. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean, safe, and filled with quiet hope. Between baby feedings and study sessions, Jasmine started working part-time with a local community health group. She helped young girls with health education, prenatal care, and emotional support. They listened to her because she spoke with honesty and warmth. She had lived what many of them were going through. Word spread online about the young mother who stood tall after being broken. A small blog wrote about her, then a local paper. She was even invited to speak at a women's conference. She wore a simple dress, carried hope on her hip, and stood in front of a small crowd. "I'm not here because I'm brave," she said. "I'm here because I had no other choice but to survive, and because I believed, just barely, that something better could come." The audience clapped, many of them crying. Back home, letters started arriving from her parents, one after another. Not excuses, just sorrow. Her father's handwriting was shaky. Her mother's words were full of regret. She read them. She cried, but she didn't reply. Not yet. Not because she hated them, but because healing takes time. Forgiveness is not always instant, and trust, once broken, must be rebuilt slowly, brick by brick. She enrolled in therapy. At first, she said very little, just sat there holding Hope's tiny hand. But week by week, she began to open up. She talked about shame, about betrayal, about how lonely it felt to be unwanted, about the fear she carried every time she heard a knock at the door. But she also talked about strength, about the power of one truth, about how her baby's first cry reminded her that life could still bloom after pain. She watched Hope grow, first smile, first steps, first words. She smiled more too. The girl who once stood barefoot in the rain, rejected and alone, was now walking confidently through hospital halls in scrubs. Patients called her nurse, and she wore the title with quiet pride. Sometimes she would sit by the window at night, holding her daughter, and whisper, "We made it, because they did." On the morning of her daughter's first birthday, Jasmine woke up early. The apartment was quiet. Hope was still asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with soft breaths. Jasmine made a cup of tea and sat by the window. A small box sat beside her. Inside it, old letters, folded notes, and pages from her journal. She pulled one out, a letter she had written months ago. It was to her parents, but she never sent it. The paper was wrinkled at the corners, her handwriting shaky in parts. She read it slowly. "I was your daughter before I was your shame. I didn't ask for pain, but I carried it. You turned away when I needed you most. Still, I wake up every day and choose peace. Not for you, for me." Jasmine wiped her eyes. She folded the paper and put it back in the box. Hope stirred in her crib. Jasmine walked over and lifted her up, kissing the top of her curly head. "You're one today," she whispered. "You don't know it yet, but you saved me." Hope yawned and smiled, her little fingers grabbing Jasmine's shirt. Jasmine held her close. "You will grow up knowing your worth. No one will silence your truth, not ever." She carried Hope outside. The sun was rising, warm and golden. The street was quiet, just birds and soft wind. As they walked, the blanket wrapped around Hope fluttered slightly in the breeze. Stitched neatly into the edge was her name, Hope. Jasmine looked down at her daughter, then up at the sky. Her smile was tired, but strong. She didn't need applause or approval. She had her truth, and she had her baby. That was enough. They kept walking into the light. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you in the next one. Bye.